Welcome to the Rare Faith Podcast, where the solution to every problem is only an idea away, and where the same activity with just a little more awareness always yields better results. Award-winning best-selling author Leslie Householder brings some of her best information to this inspiring series of life-changing episodes that you won't want to miss. Show notes for this episode can be found at ararekindoffaith.com.
That she teaches and writes about and has classes about, I've been studying, and it's literally changed my perception on life completely. It's helped us with our relationships, our marriage, our relationships with our kids, with finances. We've been able to learn how to get debt free. Just every aspect of my life, the things that they teach help with everything. And so anyway, I'm excited to hear from them today. So we'll just turn the time over. And we just brought you. I got you guys some aloha.
Thank you so much. I didn't know what mahalo meant before I came, but I heard it so many times on the airplane. I'm like, I have to know what this means. And so I found out. Now I use it. Thank you so much, Denise and Colin, for letting us be here and for letting us use your beach chairs, and it's been such a fun week. I have about 3 or 4 different things that I want to share tonight. We're not going to have time to do all of them, so I thought it might be a good idea to just kind of run through the room, find out a little bit about who you are, why you came tonight, and whether or not you're already familiar with some of this stuff, or just kind of get a feel for where we're at as a group. If that's okay. You want to start?
Okay, sure. I'm Teresa. I live in Mililani. I've been in Hawaii for 4 years. I'm always really interested in things that help expand. I believe in abundance. And so Carmen, my housemate, told me about this and invited me, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
I am Carmela. Most of you know me from church. I heard about your book from Angelica because her husband called her on the phone, and he was on speakerphone, and he was talking about this book, and I was like, what book are you talking about? And he's like, you should tell Carmen. So that's how I found out, and she was telling me it was a great book. So I bought it. I read it in one night.
Was that Jackrabbit Factor? Okay.
I have all of your books.
Okay.
So, and she's like, you're a great reader, and I'm like, but I'm really familiar with the stuff you talk about because I've studied different things at a Japanese university, and I also was in India. Okay. And I also had some classes with the Dalai Lama.
Oh, wow.
So many of the thinking and the other stuff that you talk about, I don't want to spoil it. I was familiar with it in a different perspective. So I really enjoyed how you put it in your books and stuff.
Thank you.
But I'm really excited for tonight and hear more what you have to say.
Good. Thank you.
I'm Angelica. We're very nice one. From church.
And what church is this?
So much to say.
This Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Good job.
So I learned from you because of Sister Wallace. She talked in a Relief Society activity, and I was so interested in the things she said. So I was begging her, please teach me more. Please, I want to learn everything you know. Took months.
Yeah.
So, and then she finally said, okay. So, and then she said, watch this video. And I watched you. And he's my father-in-law. We need to watch this video. It's amazing because suddenly everything that I learned, it clicked. Oh, now I understand. And then I got the book and everything you compared with the scriptures, it was just like, this is what I need to know to really understand what faith means. And it's changed my life, and talking to Sister Wallace every week, she had been teaching me and everything about you, teaching your book. So I was so happy to spread the news. You need to listen to this lady, buy the books. My husband is like, oh, I want more. He learned the book, he read the book, and he's all this stuff. So we have been going through a difficult situation, and because of these things, our perspective in life is changed. So we have a good attitude no matter what happened. It's bad, we're expecting the other side something good to happen. So we became happier people because of all this knowledge.
Good. Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful.
I'm Quinn from Mesa, Arizona.
What?
Wow.
Are you from Mesa?
Yeah, we're in Gilbert right now.
Oh, Gilbert, okay. Well, the
I
Mesa,
was born and raised in Mesa.
We were married there.
and we go to Gilbert Temple now because Mesa Temple's closed.
Right.
But anyway, I'm the father-in-law of Antanica. My son Dan is in Honduras. But we were here a couple months ago when they showed us that video of yours, and we were really interested in it. And I'm not supposed to be here tonight. I'm supposed to be home watching the two boys, but my wife said I couldn't, so she stayed.
She didn't trust me.
Oh,
But I've watched boys before.
yeah. Are you visiting Hawaii then right now?
We're visiting.
Okay,
Yes.
well, good.
I just retired 2 weeks ago.
Good. So where in Mesa are you from?
I'm in the Red Mountain State,
Okay. Okay.
in the northeast Mesa.
Yeah. Good. Good. How
We
long
had to
did-
come to Hawaii to meet.
I know. I know. That's really great.
It's funny.
All right, we'll jump to you.
So I'm Karen. Denise gave a presentation in Macy. It was kind of the first that I learned about it. But I knew that this was going to be a great night and wanted to come and learn more.
Oh, good. Glad you're here.
I'm Nicole, and I also heard from Denise about you, and I just came to learn.
Okay.
I'm Becca Brown, and I learned about you from Denise. As usual, I'm actually a life coach myself, and so just love it. So.
Yes, good. Good.
I'm Rebecca. I actually found out about your stuff from a fellow voice teacher, and she sent me the videos, and I loved it. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago. So I sent it to my husband, and he watched it, and then we just read the books. And we really think that it's a lot of the reason why we moved back to Hawaii, which is where he grew up, and why we're here in the situation where we are. Right now, we're demolishing the old home that his dad lived in, and we're doing really crazy adventurous things. But yeah, I can point to that video that we first watched. So.
Where were you living?
We were living in Provo.
Okay.
We went to BYU and never meant to raise our kids there, and we're just there for 20 years. So. We escaped. It was great. It was great. Yeah, our oldest kids were raised there, but now our younger ones are not even going to remember that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
We have 5.
Okay.
Cool.
So yes, this is my wife Rebecca. I'm Thomas. To kind of continue what Rebecca was saying, when I was exposed to, I think it was Jackrabbit Factor first, I wanted to learn more, and so I signed up for your Mindset Mastery course. And I haven't even opened the second half yet because we got through the first half of it, and then all this stuff happened. I was in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which is now the Tabernacle Choir. I was doing great things in Provo, but then all of a sudden it was time for me to come home.
Yeah.
And take care of things here, just family stuff. And now we're building a house in Hawaii, and it's not in Hilo or somewhere where the land is cheap. It's right smack dab in Honolulu. So
Wow.
I can't. Rebecca and I agree that half of your Mindset Mastery course was powerful enough.
You haven't finished it. You're halfway through.
That's the thing. It's like half of your Mindset Mastery course was powerful enough to kick us loose of.
You're not supposed to do the big things in the first half. Horrible student.
No, he's doing the second half work right now. He just doesn't know it.
Yeah.
Detention for you.
Yeah.
That's really great. Thank you. Okay.
I'm Jamie Chang. I just a few months ago got married, quit my job, and moved out here with my husband. So Denise mentioned really good things about it, so I'm excited to learn and just try to figure out my next phase of life.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Cool.
I'm Ambi, and also I heard about you from Denise. I don't know as much. I haven't read any books or anything, so this is all very new to me. So I'm excited to learn more.
Good. Good. Perfect. You guys decide who goes first. I'm not going to get
Well, I'm
involved.
going last.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw your face, Krista. She was like,
Go, Betsy.
I'm Betsy. I'm 14 years old, so I'm probably the youngest one here. I heard about it from Sister Wallace, who's my Yellow Moons leader,
Cool.
when I was talking about how I want to publish my own novels. And I heard you were a self-publisher, so I'm really here more for that side.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't really know that you did self-help books until I looked you up afterwards.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. I'm glad you're here.
I'm Melody. I've never really met an author before, so I got kind of excited, but it was mostly Kaylee that told me about it. I was like, oh, you should come. I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, I guess this is my first time meeting an author, so it's really cool. And I'm curious. I just want to hear about it.
We're just normal people.
Right.
Well, you're sitting a little higher.
It's the chair, it's not us.
It's just so we can see in the back.
I had one guy, and he still tells this story.
Which story?
You know, Matt. No, so there's this guy in Utah who got all kind of weirded out about meeting an author, you know. And I don't even remember which event or what the circumstances were, but he's sitting next to me. He's like, I wish you'd just do something. Like, how did he say it? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if he asked for this or what, but I just had to pick my nose in front of him just to chill him out a little bit.
Normal people.
And now he talks about that everywhere.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I'm Kaylee, and mostly here with my daughter Betsy.
Okay.
But I haven't heard of your books or anything like that. Denise did mention them, but I'm excited to learn about them.
Okay.
I'm again new and willing to learn like every
All right.
except for ladies.
Cool.
I'm Krista. She told me to come.
I'm just kidding.
So I'm her pet project. So as a new teacher,
She practices on you?
practice. I have to pretend I'm crazy just so that way she remembers all your knowledge and tells me all about it. I have 7 kids. Youngest is 6, oldest is 20, and we move around every 2 to 3 years. And I'm really here to be a more successful me.
Okay. Wonderful.
Because there's a whole lot going on. We just asked Denise.
I think Becca has words for you. So,
Rebecca knows, Anna knows.
We're teaming up.
Oh, yeah. It takes a village.
I'll let everybody know about
I can guess.
I have to say, Denise, look at the ripple effects.
Yeah.
So, you guys don't know, Denise doesn't feel real confident in this stuff, but she is amazing. She has been an incredible student of this material, and she has been such an amazing contributor to our online class that we've been having, our guided Mindset Mastery class. Everybody has benefited from your experience and everything that you've been willing to give, your vulnerability and everything. So thank you. Mm-hmm. On behalf of all of them, thank you. You're better than you think.
You learn that. I tell her that every day.
Yeah.
And she has 3 miles to walk with me.
You earned a cheesecake, Sister Wallace.
Sweet!
So we're the only people that came here just from the email.
Are you really?
Yeah, you guys are. I just met her. I mean, we know all these people.
Well, see, that goes to show you how effective my
There you
email
go.
is.
Yeah.
No, it's just Hawaii.
We gotta bring this to the locals.
Yeah.
People don't have email yet.
Yeah. Well, we were driving up the East Shore
side,
today.
we lost internet. We're like,
It was no internet. Where are we? Oh yeah, we're in Hawaii.
so before we kind of kick off, Colin or Denise, is there anything else you want to say about why you're here? Maybe.
Yeah.
Have you met the Chalks before?
No, we just met. So she told us our story when they came in. So
Okay.
that was really cool.
I guess we can tell you how we got into this. So I'm military, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be on military island. I've been in for 28 years, somewhere in there. And
Shortly after you were born, I think.
actually, I did all growing up. I played Army too. See, mine, look what happens. So, being in the Army so long and missing out on a lot of stuff with the kids and the family, I decided it's time to figure out what I'm going to do to get out of the Army. And started figuring out the retirement, never really thought about it. And when we figured it out, like, how the heck am I going to live on less than half of what I'm making now? So we got into looking at different multi-level marketing type stuff. And we got introduced to John Sims.
Mm-hmm.
John Sims talked about you
but it was really Kirk Duncan.
John Sims?
John Sims told us about you guys, but we didn't know who you, but not like by name.
You know, we've never met him.
Are you serious?
We never got big enough in the organization to get his attention.
Well, he told us about Jackrabbit story and stuff, and so when we started reading your book, I'm like, and then you talked about John Sims, I'm like, oh.
So I guess I should
Like
say
it
who John
connected,
Sims
it all
is.
connected, yeah.
John Sims was like one of the biggest builders ever in Amway, when Amway was a big thing.
Yeah.
And then they left Amway when they kind of went a different way that they didn't feel good about. And then they started a new company called Avasay, which now is combined with 3 other companies. And he went from being a tow truck driver to somebody that owned his own Lear jet. Fly people around, and he still acts like a tow truck driver. Very down to earth, normal guy.
He was one of the greatest teachers and mentors of these principles that.
Funniest guy I've ever met.
Yeah, we talk to him all the time, but then we went to a function where Kirk Duncan talked through our business.
Mm-hmm.
We went to all his trainings, and he told us about you guys.
Talk about the whiskers and the book.
And so when he mentioned that, and that was the last training with him, then we started reading your books after that and that. So I feel like one thing led to another, because the stuff that you guys have taught was the missing key for me. It was the light bulb. Like the light bulb went on, and I was like, oh, this is what I've been missing.
Well, I have to say there was a time it was really this idea that it comes full circle. You know, when we talk about in our other podcasts and whatever, we've talked about when we were struggling so much and we started going to events, it was these seminars that this organization would put on to help train their distributors to think according to these true principles. And going to over 100 of them, we would listen to the big leaders who had succeeded and done so well, teaching principles of right thinking and success, and how mindset changes everything. You know, you think, oh, if I change my mindset, then that will make me do things differently and I'll get different results. And what we learned is that no, you change your mindset and things change, even before you start doing things differently. It's fascinating. But when you start paying attention, you start tracing it, you realize how important your mindset is. But as we're going to all these events and we're taking notes, listening to these leaders, we get a nugget and we're like, oh my gosh, that changes everything, you know, and bit by bit, we'd get a piece until, you know, 7 years later, that final piece fell into place and we're like, and then in 3 months tripled our income. You know, it was like we had to get all those pieces in place for that to happen. But along the way, we had so much admiration and respect for these leaders who had figured it out and were seeing successful results in applying them. And there was one time I was asked to speak at a fireside in St. George, probably 8-10 years ago. And as I'm sitting there getting ready to talk about my book, Hidden Treasures, I see this couple walk in who were some of the leaders that we had learned from years before, walk into the fireside where I was going to speak. And I'm like, were you there?
Steve?
Yeah.
I think I was.
I'm like, look, you know, somebody we had idolized, you know, somebody we'd learned so much from. And then he came up afterwards and he came up to me and says, thank you so much. This was the piece I was missing. You know, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. I'm so happy. It was cool. So to hear Sims, you know, coming back around, and it's just fun. But I'm going to be all over tonight. I'm just going to be all over because I'm excited.
One thing I want to say is there's a lot of people, you know, they had built big businesses or whatever, and it might have been an MLM or it might have been just a regular traditional business. And a lot of them don't know why they were successful. They were what we call unconscious competence, right? You know, they couldn't teach somebody else how to do what they had done, but they just instinctively knew how to do what they did.
For themselves.
But when we learn these principles, we're like, this is so amazing because now we can teach it. You know, now it's something concrete that we can understand why things work the way they do, and it's duplicatable, right? We can share this with others. And so there's been a lot of successful people that have come to us and said, I want your books because I want to be able to teach it. like share how to be successful with others, with their kids especially, like in their family. So that was cool.
I remember when I did an interview on the local ABC news in Arizona, I had 3 minutes to try to convey what Jackrabbit Factor was about. And I was still like, I don't even know what my elevator speech is, 3 minutes. And I kind of went blank. We got a nice screenshot. It helps sells books, because it looks like I'm important that I'm on a TV show. But I blanked out. It was the most awful interview ever. Never wanted to do another one. And from that, I thought, oh man, this is going to broadcast to the Phoenix metropolitan area. Got to get the books ready. There's going to fly off the shelves, whatever. I think we sold one book from that
Oprah will be
interview.
calling.
We sold one book from that interview, and it was someone up like closer to Flagstaff who emailed me and says, I saw your interview, and she says, I could see your frustration because how do you explain this? I know, but she's like, I love your book because it explained what I do that I didn't understand what I was doing. Now I've got this to share with my friends and family. And so that's kind of what it's done. So backing up, for those of you who don't know anything about what this is about. So Trevin and I married in 1991. And before we got married, our plan was, okay, we talked about this before we got married, that, I really want to be a stay-at-home mom, and he wanted that for his wife, and so it was a match, so we got married. No, just kidding. But we get married, and we were young and financially unprepared to be self-sufficient, scraping by, but not self-sufficient enough for me to stay at home. And so we both worked that first year. We were also going to school.
Starving college students. And then I'm expecting, and at the end of that year, I'm ready to have this baby, and we just decided we're going to operate on faith. We believe this is what the Lord wanted for us and our family, is for me to be the primary nurturer at home. And so baby number one comes along, and I quit my job. And the numbers didn't add up, but we believed in a miracle, right? Live on love, right?
You can live on love.
Two can live as cheaply as one. We've heard these things.
As long as one person doesn't eat.
Yeah.
Right. So that year wasn't the blissful motherhood scenario that I'd imagined from the time I was a little girl. It was constantly stressed, worrying about how we're going to pay this bill, how we're going to cover that, if the bank is going to reverse that late fee again or not. It's just constant that way. Old cars, car. We had a dune buggy, was a second car. We sold that to help pay bills. I sold my wedding dress, sold my young woman's medallion at a yard sale.
Wow. She sold her flute.
Sold my flute.
I sold my guns.
Just to stay at home.
I know, right?
I didn't know the young woman's medallion wasn't something you could just go buy at the Deseret bookstore again sometime.
Somebody was really excited to get it.
She was so excited. Later I served in Young Women's, and the bishop, I told him the story, and he was kind enough to get me another one. But yeah, I'm like, that's how desperate we were. We were working multiple jobs. We were cleaning office buildings at night after school and after our day job. One of the office buildings we cleaned was Stephen R. Covey's. Oh. Never met him, but I've emptied his trash many times. Anyway, so all this, and before the baby came, our radar was up. We were looking for a way. A better job or whatever. We were both working at a home for the mentally handicapped, which was basically minimum wage.
When minimum wage went up, we got a raise. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So Trevin's at the grocery store one day, and this young kid is there, and he gets talking to him in the aisle. And of course, our radar is up looking for opportunities. And he said that he's got a business and he's expanding. And he ended up being our connection into this multi-level marketing organization that we joined. And as we went to these events, we were convinced that we could become like the leaders who were not just stay-at-home mom, but stay-at-home dad too. Why not? If we're going to be dreaming big, why not? We just want to enjoy our family. And so that became the dream. And it's kind of I want to say it's sad, but it is kind of sad when you get a glimpse of what's possible. It's sometimes hard to be happy with anything less. And so it's this balance. It's figuring out how to have a dream and how to pursue it without just being absolutely frustrated and upset with the way things are, because sometimes that gets in the way of living these principles. And these principles are what open those doors. We might get into more of that later, but long story short, 7 years of going to these monthly events, trying to figure out how to think right, how to talk to prospects right, how to build this business. And at one point we had one leader say, look, if you just show 150 presentations, you'll be making $2,000 a month, because nobody in the organization has ever done that many presentations and not hit that level. And we're like, cool. So I created a paper with 150 squares, and I thought, all right, honey, we fill this in and we're going to be making $2,000 a month, which would have retired us. I mean, that was amazing money at that
students,
time.
Yeah.
And residual income, nonetheless, right? That was attractive. So we get to the end of that paper. We did 150 presentations, and we were no closer to making. For the audio, Trevin is putting an L on his forehead. Like, we are the first people in the history of this organization to do 150 presentations and not be making that money. It was probably just somebody throwing that out there, like how would anybody know, really? Yeah. Now that I think about it, it was a good motivational tactic to get us moving. But we were just frustrated. And I was dealing with depression, and I was never diagnosed officially, because the one time I went to the doctor to get help, first meeting, she was very encouraging and optimistic. When I went back to actually get whatever help she had to offer, she ticked me off, and I stormed out of there and never went back because I was depressed, about life. And anyway, so I'm pretty sure I was clinically depressed. Things got bad enough, there was a point, and I tell this story probably too often, but it just encapsulates kind of where I was at and where my mindset was, that I came outside one time. We were in this 2-bedroom little seedy apartment in a neighborhood that was not inspiring, and cigarette smoke coming through the outlets as I'm raising my babies, and I'm home with them, and it's just a constant reminder that life is not what we had pictured. But I came outside one day to find my broom had been broken in half by the neighbor kid. And so I called the police. That's where my head was. That's how I solved problems.
You didn't have the $12 or whatever it was to replace the broom.
I was so upset, I called the police on the kid who broke my broom. 2 years later, not necessarily in a depressed place, but I did call the police on a kid who's a 5-year-old who stole cookie dough out of my fridge. It's a true story. True story. That's on my video. If you want to hear more of that story, go find my video at rarefaith.org. It's under the freebies section. The visual.
And we're not recommending that, by the way.
Video or
no.
Calling the police. Giving access to a 5-year-old to your
Yeah. Even when we were not home, we didn't even know the kid. Did we?
No.
I thought it was your own kid.
No.
It wasn't that.
That would have been harsh, but.
So, anyway, these events were coming around regularly, and every time I'm like, I know I need to be there because I keep getting pieces that I need, but I'm just so tired of nothing really changing. So tired of nothing changing. And we were investing money we didn't have in these trainings. We were spending grocery money to go to this $10, $20 thing here or $300 thing there. And so this one comes along and I'm like, honey, I know we need to be there. I'm so tired of this. I'm kind of mad. Don't want to do it, but had to go. So we went, and I said, this is the last one. Been doing this for 7 years. You get all hopeful, and then you crash when nothing changes. And you go to the next one, you're all hopeful, and you crash because nothing changes. And I think those kind of helped at least keep me up once in a while. So it was giving me hope. Some people call it hopium. But by the same token, hope is a poor man's bread. We were living on this hope, and it did keep us going. So we go to this event, and the speaker there was Bob Proctor, and he was very subtle. He didn't have our attention. He's not this rah, big, flamboyant type, entertaining speaker. He's just like, look, there is a verse in the Mormon scripture. He's not a member of the church. He says, there is a verse in the Mormon scripture that says, there is a law irrevocably decreed before the foundations of the world, upon which all blessings are predicated. And when we obtain a blessing, any blessing from God, it is by obedience to the law upon which it is predicated. Something like that. I'm not quoting it right. I never do, but it's close enough. You can look it up. DNC 130, 20 and 21. So this is how he opened his presentation. And I'm like, I'm listening, And he said,
he said, woo, woo.
I'm like, is that an amen?
Yes.
So he says that there are laws connected to prosperity. If you obey these laws, you'll prosper. And I'm like, and what are the laws? And so he starts teaching, and actually the first time he taught, I wasn't really paying attention because I was distracted and he was not entertaining. And I was tired, And
she was counting up how much we had spent to go to that event.
Probably. And at the end of the event, the whole room, it was at the D Event Center in Ogden, or near Ogden, in Ogden. Huge, giant crowd. And at the end, everybody was in a buzz about what he had just shared. And I'm like, I look at my husband, I said, well, what did he say? And he just spent 2 hours sharing the key to everything, and I had not listened, and I'm like, dang, this was the last event, and I missed it. This was the last one I was going to go to, and I missed it. So months later, everybody's still talking about what he shared. And I'd never seen this kind of stickiness with information presented at these kinds of events before. And so they actually brought him back to speak again, which is something we'd never seen them do before. And they didn't just bring him back to give him 2 hours. They brought him back and said, here's 3 days to teach our people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a 3-day thing with him. And we're like, okay, honey, we are going. Mm-hmm. We're going to sit on the front row, as front as we can get, and we are going to be ready. We're not going to miss a thing. And it was at that event, we're listening and we're taking notes, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is it. Everything fell into place. We finally got it, and it was after that in 3 months we tripled our income. And it changed everything. And 6 months later, he puts out a snail mail letter, because internet wasn't even around at that point. He says, have you ever thought about teaching what you've learned? And I'm like, honey, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I was never looking for a career, but this was, I had a fire in me. I'm like, that pain that we went through for so long and the change that it made was so dramatic, I couldn't not share it. So trained with him to teach it. I find out probably 10 years later that he saw the letter and thought he would want to. But when he saw how excited I was, he's like, here you go, honey, sure. And I look back now, I'm like, it could have been him. It might have been him if I had not just been all over that.
Yeah, I showed her the letter and I'm like, hey, honey, what do you think? And I wasn't thinking about her going. I was thinking about me going.
I'm like, yes, I'll go.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay. I mean, it made more sense. I mean, I was working a full-time job. It was
happy wife.
It's probably easier for her to pull it off anyway. But
what I love about 18 years later is that we get to do this together more. There were a lot of times where we were at different places with it as we were learning it and trying to apply it and practicing it or experimenting with it, where I'm on fire and because of my mindset is in this place, things are working and he's struggling. Or if I'm struggling and he's got, come on, honey, it's okay, we're going to be fine. And so it's been this up and down and pull back and forth a little bit. And it probably always will be. There's some of that in every relationship, but
we complete each other, right? That's what we're there to do.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was teaching Bob Proctor's programs, but I had 5 kids, one on the way. He was working 2.5 hours away. We were fixing a house to flip it. It was a 2-bedroom home with all these kids, and life was just a little crazy. It was hard to put on events in the middle of all that. And so I thought, I can't not share what we learned. I need to write a book and let that be my seminar instead of me trying to put on events. And I thought, well, but there are so many books out there that talk about these principles, and I'd read them. It's got to be different. It's got to be something that wakes people up. It's got to be an emotional experience. So I could imagine people reading it, and I would get choked up and tearful thinking about those who were still suffering and what they were about to learn. And it was such an emotional experience for me to try to create something instead of a book that would just be bullet points. Here's how to make sure you do this and this and this and this, and here's how to think. I thought if I could just write a story that I could weave into one story all the nuggets that we had captured over those 7 years at all those events, every one of those little nuggets, because I still had all my notes. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to create this story where this couple eventually learns all these things, and I just got to make sure all those things are there so that a person can get in 2-3 hours what took us 7 years. Mm. That was the Jackrabbit factor. That's where that one came from. And so, long story short, that's where it began. Hidden Treasures was actually written first. As I was learning from Bob Proctor, I was simultaneously struggling to deal with a situation that was causing me a hard time to forgive somebody. I was just so angry and so wrapped up in it. It was really, really hard to let go of it. And I think it was a lot of contributing to the depression that would come and go depending on if I was pregnant or not.
Which was all the time.
I know. So.
About the same as you. The span was the same. You're 6 years behind us.
Yeah. So while I'm trying to get over this anger, I'm trying to learn how to forgive, trying to figure out how to forgive, because I wanted to. I thought I need to feel better, and to feel better I need to let this go, but it wouldn't let go of me. And so I'm reaching out, I'm going to therapy, I'm talking to my bishop, I'm talking to my friends and family and anybody who would just help me process this. And it got to a point where I was like, I had exhausted all those resources and I was probably annoying people. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll go to the internet. And I was terrified because this thing was new. And I'd heard that there's really bad things on the internet, and I was afraid to go there. And so I put in the search bar, I'm like, okay, what can I put in here to make sure that nothing but good comes back? And so I thought, well, forgiveness, Christian, I think that may have been how to forgive Christian or something. And what pops up was this website called shelovesgod.com that I just started reading. It was a place where you could post your own articles or things that you're processing. And I end up on this woman's email list, which, by the way, her website pops up and I'm looking at it to see, is this a safe place? And down at the bottom is a Greg Olson painting. And I'm like, oh, Greg Olson. And then at the bottom it said CES Consultants. I'm like, oh, Church Educational System. Okay. Well, it's not. It's like some other acronym for her business. But it was enough to make me feel safe. And I get on her mailing list. She ends up sending out a broadcast at some point about forgiveness. And so that goes out, and I'm reading it. I'm like, oh, maybe this is my answer. And I'm reading it. I'm like, well, there's really nothing new here. I know all this. But I decided to reply, and I'd say, sorry to bug you. I'm sure you get lots of emails, but I'm just really struggling with this and love your input. And she's like, sure, what's up? And I'm like, oh, she answered. So I tell her the story, and we get to be friends. And she says, well, I guess you figure that the reason I wrote about forgiveness is because I'm trying to forgive someone myself. I'm like, well, that never crossed my mind, but, tell me what's going on. She says, well, we had just worked really hard to get out of debt, and then my husband went and racked up all our credit cards again. And she was really upset. I'm like, well, money, I could help you with that, because I just learned these principles. And so we started corresponding. She's from Georgia. We started corresponding. And her website at the time, she had several, was making about $2,000 a month. And then the next month with these principles, it went to $4,000. The month after that, it went to $8,000. She's like, this is incredible. You've got to share this with my readers. And she said, will you please write one article per week about the laws, the 7 laws? And I said, sure. So I'm on the computer just writing these articles once a week. And by the time that was all done, she's like, well, you need to come speak at my online teleconference, women's conference that I hold in October. And I'm like, what is that? How's that work? And so I'd get on the phone and I would be teaching on the phone, which is the weirdest thing I'd ever done. And then she's like, oh, and after people hear you, they're going to want to know more about you. You need a website. So she threw a website together for me. Do you see how this one awful, horrific forgiveness issue led to this door that just opened and helped me get underway? And that we're still friends 18 years later. We've been friends ever since. But she taught me how to publish myself because I got tired of being rejected by all these publishers. So I ended up doing it myself, which was good because now I can make them available for free as free downloads, and I don't have to get anyone's permission to do that. I still own the rights. So there's that benefit.
So like you were saying before, as bad as it is as good as it is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
One of the principles.
So that's the backdrop. For those of you who didn't really know anything about what we do or what this is about, that's where it all started. You're probably wondering what the laws are.
Hidden treasures.
Hidden treasures. And I was kind of hoping tonight, I don't know, how are we doing on time?
8.
We've got 4 minutes left.
I don't know, what time did we say?
No, 9.
10.
9?
10.
Angelica's going to have a sleepover.
Well, what I want to do is I want to point you to the basics that you can get online when we're not here. Because I'd like tonight to be an opportunity for us to share some things that we haven't shared anywhere else. I think that would be fun.
And Q&A, it's interaction, right?
So if you want to know about the laws, Hidden Treasures is where those are outlined. We had a surge of sales before we came here, so we don't even have any to sell. I think is this yours?
Mine's over here.
Yours.
So we have one. We have one.
Auction.
And one jackrabbit factor.
Help us pay for our flight home.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Literally, that is all we have. Back at the house and everything, that's what we have.
We do have a bunch of these. This is the Hidden Treasures on CDs. We do have probably 6 or 8 of these here.
But I got your book on Amazon, and they arrived within, you told me, a day, 2 days?
Yes.
They arrived right away.
So I can get those CDs tonight.
The CDs are here tonight, yes. Because I'll probably forget to say this, As a Man Thinketh is like 100-plus-year-old book that we republished with a little foreword from me on there. This is a classic, and the principles that are in here are the inspiration behind the Jackrabbit Factor and my other books. That one and The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. I don't love the name. The Science of Getting Rich, I just don't love the name. But this is probably one of the most powerful books explaining how the elements respond to our thoughts. That there is a formless substance out of which all things are created, which I'm going to read this because he says it at the end of every chapter, and it's super powerful. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. So it talks about how we partner with God to create the way he did. And so whenever we want to change something about our life, we can use these principles to co-create change, to co-create and get the resources we need to accomplish the purposes we have in mind. It helps you overcome the fear of abundance, even. So I love these books. We have a number of these here, and they're each $5 tonight. And so it's a good place to start if you wanted something in hand and we don't have the others. So I am excited that Trevin's here with me tonight. We don't get to do this together very often. But have any of you read Portal to Genius, which is the sequel to the Jackrabbit Factor? A few of you? So Portal to Genius, we have a few of them on CD, which, by the way, this does have Jackrabbit Factor with it. It's the first 3 CDs is Jackrabbit Factor, and the last 6 are the sequel. I have to tell you why there was a need for a sequel. So 2000 was when our first breakthrough happened, and things are going well. We published the books in 2005, and then getting a little bit overzealous, we invested too much in real estate at the top of the market.
Because we had done really well with the principals before, and we had lots of money to invest, and so we thought we just really knew what we were doing. And
because we had done so well with real estate in 2004. You know. Anyway, so yeah, we weren't as smart as we thought we were, but so that's falling apart, and at the same time, the books are doing really well, and the word is spreading, and people's lives are changing, and we're hearing these stories come in, and ours is falling apart, and our readers are so excited and grateful, and I'm like, who are we? I don't even know who we are anymore. And we had to grapple with, okay, I felt like maybe I need to pull the books off the shelves. I don't even know if it's true anymore, because everything I'm trying that worked before isn't working. You know, it's not working like it used to. So we get to the end of he had quit his job to do this with me full time. And we've been doing it for about 5 years. So why don't you tell them the lead up to the restaurant?
I'm not sure what you want me to share.
Things got bad. Just tell how bad they were. So bad.
I can tell it, I remember.
Yeah, do you remember? She didn't prepare me for this at all. So, you know, things did get pretty ugly. And as they did, it really put a strain on our relationship too, as you can imagine. But we did all kinds of things. I mean, we sold all our toys and just tried to keep everything going, just keep everything together.
We kind of thought that if we could just think right, we could turn our bad investments into something good.
Yeah.
Right? The law of polarity, the law of rhythm, all these laws that were like, well, if we just think right about this, then we can turn it into something amazing. And what we found out is that sometimes the bad thing doesn't become good, but it gives you something good out of it. Doesn't mean the investment's going to be good. Mm-hmm. And we did end up finding the good in it, but there came a point where we were down to the end of all of the money. We had about $200 left in the bank. Our savings was gone. Our credit was maxed. We had about $15,000 in mortgages coming due because we were floating a lot of properties that weren't selling and weren't being rented, and no paycheck in sight. And yeah.
And 6 kids.
7 at this time.
7,
yeah.
Wow.
By this time. So share about what we decided to do.
So, you know.
Sell 1 kid.
Sell a kid.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted that.
Hey, we have a judge over here, so let's not let him
Yeah. There were times that thought may or may not have crossed my mind. But, yeah, so we, you know, coming up to our anniversary, we were just like, Leslie came to me and she just said, you know what, it's our anniversary. Can we just, even though things are like really not in a great place, can we just go out to dinner for a couple hours and just pretend like everything is good? And I remember something that John Sims had said one time. He's a truck driver, he's a tow truck driver, right? So he kind of talks like a tow truck driver, and he goes, you know, when you're up to your neck in crap, it doesn't hurt to pee your pants. I thought, That's John, right?
Yeah. Sounded slightly edited.
Yeah, maybe so. But yeah, he doesn't have the expletives. But anyways, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, let's just accelerate into the ground. And so we did. We went out to dinner, not some extravagant place, but a place that we, thought was good. It was called Macaroni Grill. I don't know if you guys have ever been there, heard of it. So do you want me to tell the story or do you want to tell the story? So we just went, and they have, if you've ever been there, their tablecloths are like butcher paper, and they bring you crayons. And it's for the kids mostly, but we had fun that night. So we had fun just drawing and just envisioning where, this is something that Leslie had asked me that night. She said, so we've got a lot of negative energy about how things are right now, but, do you think we'll have it figured out in 10 years? And I'm like, oh yeah, 10 years? Yeah, I think we can have it figured out by then. And she said, let's talk about what life is like 10 years from now. And so that's what we did. We used those crayons and we just started thinking and dreaming and talking about what is it like.
How will our kids be? What will they probably be doing? Just trying to envision being there.
Yeah. And it totally changed our emotion and everything where we were at.
Got excited.
Yeah, it was really exciting. And so we had a great night. There was no stress. And as we were walking out of the restaurant, we paid the bill, and we were walking to the car, and the waiter comes up, server, whatever they're called now. He comes running back out to the car, and he says, wait. And he had our receipt, and he said, the manager says...
Did we think maybe it didn't go through? Is that why he was chasing us?
And he goes, manager says because it's your anniversary, your meal's on us. Oh. And so they just canceled it out.
We'd already paid it.
We didn't even tell him that it was our anniversary. He must have just either overheard or I don't know. I don't know how he knew. But it was just
in that moment,
it was a tender mercy.
In that moment, we looked at each other with this knowing look, because we had been very intentional that night about changing our energy, changing our feelings by envisioning what we wanted instead of what we were dealing with, by letting ourselves feel that, letting ourselves live in that. And those are two things that you're going to hear over and over again, whether you read the books or listen to our podcast, is that two things: see it done. See the end that you intend. See yourself as an author. See yourself selling books at book signings, talking to the people, and see it done. And step 2, Thomas, what's step 2? You haven't done, okay, that's right, you haven't done part 2.
Yeah, you just hijacked his midfield.
You have to get emotional.
Emotion. I know you know that because that's what you do.
Yeah.
Step 1, see it done. Step 2, let yourself feel the emotion of it. And when we talked about how your mindset actually makes things happen without you even doing anything yet, it kind of goes before you. It's that feeling. It's that feeling that you feel that puts a pulse out and starts a ripple effect. And you find out that you get unseen help working for you. You get resources start to gather for you. Things are being organized on your behalf when you have that feeling of grateful expectation that things are going to be okay. And how often by default do we let ourselves get worried and fearful and frustrated and angry and upset? Well, that's doing this in reverse. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're seeing, what you're seeing is the disaster you don't want, and you're letting yourself feel the fear before it's even happened, which is this creative process in reverse. And so that little thing, that little shift, see the end that you intend and let yourself feel what that's going to be like, it causes things to happen. That's why it's the rare faith that causes things to happen. So the reason I wanted to share this little piece tonight is because about 6 months prior to that, we decided that, for the things that we were learning through the recession, because I think we struggled so much to live the things we've been teaching for 7 years already. We were struggling to live it because things had never been so hard. We thought they were hard 7 years prior. You know, we thought they were hard before that first breakthrough. This was hard on a whole different level.
I have to interject because one of the reasons is because we learned that we can use the principles to get what we want, but we also learned that maybe we shouldn't be just trying to get what we want. Maybe we should be checking in to find out like what's the best path for us instead of just deciding what we want.
So disclaimer, these principles work to achieve stupid goals.
Yes.
So if you have a stupid goal, you can use these principles to achieve it. But with that comes pain, and we were experiencing that. Yeah.
She's laughing because my stupid goal is just put the trash in the garbage can.
Are you just about aim?
Stupid goal. It really is. I visualize the counter clean.
Oh, okay.
How is that stupid? That's what I want to know. That's awesome.
There's a principle in the science of getting rich that talks about using the will, proper use of the will, so we should talk.
Can I say with the example, so I go down, the kids made their like breakfast sandwiches, and I said, I visualize this counter clean. And my kids are going running, and they go and throw it. I'm like, wow, it's a miracle. I'm very dramatic at home.
That's good.
We couldn't tell.
We have a daughter who may or may not be just like you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
God bless you. It's wonderful.
She's a great blessing.
You know, I was telling Angelica a couple days ago, when I was like 17, me and my best friend, we always joked we were going to live in Hawaii. And I was like, oh, I'm going to live in Hawaii one day and I'm going to marry somebody from Hawaii. And then my friend was like, yeah. But we always joked about it. Like, we went to high school together. And I remember in my brain, I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to go to Hawaii. And I was telling her, I was like, the way I came to Hawaii was crappy. Ended up in a very bad marriage. And I was like, what I learned from that experience is that my mind wasn't that. I achieved what I wanted. Because when I was 14 until I was 17, I kept saying, I'm going to live in Hawaii, I'm going to live in Hawaii, I'm going to live in Hawaii. But I forgot to tell the universe, how am I going to get there? And so the universe said, I'm going to find the first crappy guy that is going to do this, and that. But you're going to get there. So then I was telling Angelica, I had to be specific. Rich guy that maybe is dying right away so I can be rid of. I forgot to say that. But I was like, I still got there. And I was like, but the way it did get me to it, like 10 years after, that was, I didn't specify and I didn't visualize because I was visualizing myself, why in the salad? And then what is all the rest of the salad? The craziness. And I was like, wait, that I didn't ask for it. So I was like, I learned it. I have to be super specific.
That's right. You're right.
And even with Teresa, a couple of weeks ago, we were writing a list. She was like, you need to write a list of the qualities you want in a man. Because I kept saying, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. And she was like, well, you might gonna get that because you keep focusing on what you don't want.
Yeah, try searching Amazon for what you don't want.
Yeah. So me, like Teresa was like, okay, let's sit down together and write down a list of positive things. So like, it also helped me that like, okay, let me get back on track and think of the positive instead of the negative. Because then I track the positive instead of that.
Right.
So that's what we were talking with Angelica. We need to be specific.
Yes.
So when you were saying this story of you visualizing, making the little pictures and stuff, I had to be more specific. So and that's hard.
We learn the hard way, but the good news is that we can take what we learn and get it right the next time.
This concludes today's episode of the Rare Faith Podcast. You've been listening to Leslie Householder, author of The Jackrabbit Factor, Portal to Genius, and Hidden Treasures, Heaven's Astonishing Help with Your Money Matters. All 3 books can be downloaded free at rarekindoffaith.com. So tell your friends and join Leslie again next time as she goes even deeper into the principles that will help you change your life.